The origins of coffee are unclear. According to an Ethiopian legend, a goat herder named Kaldi discovered coffee when he noticed that his goats became suspiciously energetic after eating some red berries from a certain tree. Kaldi shared his findings with a monk who actually disapproved of their use and threw the beans into the campfire. The result was, of course, a wonderful, lovely aroma which was compelling enough to get people interested in coffee. Arabica coffee trees originate from Ethiopian forests in the region called Kaffa, hence the name coffee in English and many other languages today. However, other, less popular species of coffee might originate from other parts of Africa. The first humans to consume coffee enjoyed it in a very different form. Raw berries were fried in butter and eaten, or sometimes boiled and chewed. Coffee trees remained mostly wild, harvested sparingly. The earliest credible evidence we have of drinking or trading coffee comes from the late 15th century by Sufi imam named Muhammad ibn Sayyid al-Dabani, who had imported goods from Ethiopia to Yemen. The new beverage helped Sufi imams with concentration during the sacred chants, and also it was used as a form of spiritual intoxication. Coffee quickly gained popularity and spread northward to Mecca and Medina. By the 16th century, coffee was enjoyed in Syria, Egypt, Persia and Turkey. Interestingly enough, at first the more conservative Sufi imams banned coffee for its stimulating effects. The prohibition was quickly cancelled though, as it was already too late to prevent the spread of the new beverage. Many public coffee houses called Kave Kane started to appear across the Middle East. The coffee houses became extremely popular. Patrons attended there to drink coffee, have intellectual conversations, but also to watch performances, listen to music, play chess, and establish business connections. They gained such importance that they were often called the schools of the wise. Throughout the 16th century, coffee shops began to appear across the whole Ottoman Empire. The Turks were the ones to introduce coffee to Europe in the 1500s, both through war and trade. They attacked Malta but failed to conquer the island, and as a result many Turks became slaves, introducing coffee to the Maltese. A few decades later, the Venetian merchants acquired beans through trade and brought the practice of drinking coffee to the wealthy in Venice, charging them heavily for the new beverage. That way, coffee was introduced to the old continent. However, the drink at the beginning was highly controversial. Europeans got it from the Muslims, and many people called it the bitter invention of Satan. As a matter of fact, the Venetian clergy banned coffee in 1615. I think by now we can spot sort of a pattern here. A very interesting situation took place when Pope Clement VIII was asked to intervene. And for me, this is one of those situations that are very unique to a time period and that we don't have them anymore. So the Pope had to decide whether Christians can actually drink coffee or not. He decided to taste the drink before making a decision. It turns out he thought it was delicious. And paraphrasing, of course, he said that we shouldn't leave such a good drink just for Muslims, but Christians should take advantage of coffee, and so he baptized coffee to clear any controversy. The first coffee house in mainland Europe was opened in 1645 in Venice. Afterwards, coffee quickly gained popularity among European societies. The coffee houses became centers of social activity in countries like France, England, Austria, Germany, and Netherlands. Coffee quickly replaced common breakfast beverages of the time, which were wine and beer. Those who drank coffee were more energized and clear-headed, and of course, quality of their work has greatly improved. The European race to acquire live coffee plants was won by the Dutch in 1616. a merchant in the service of the Dutch East India Company called Pieter van den Brecke obtained some of the guarded coffee bushes from Yemen and took them to Amsterdam to the botanical garden. Thanks to him, a couple of decades later, the Dutch were able to begin coffee cultivation in Sri Lanka and southern India. Shortly after that, the Dutch colonies became the main supplier of coffee to Europe. When it comes to Americas, Europeans brought coffee to the colonies in the beginning of the 18th century. Coffee cultivation quickly spread over both North and South Americas. There's an interesting story behind the origins of the famous Brazilian coffee. Around the year 1727, the Portuguese king sent Francisco de Melo Paleta to the French Guiana to obtain some of the coffee seedlings. At first, he had a tough time obtaining the seeds, but when he was leaving, the French governor's wife, captivated by his appearance, gave him a large bouquet of flowers. Inside, she hid enough coffee seeds to begin cultivation. It took Brazilians another century to gain independence and also momentum in the coffee industry. However, Brazil became the largest coffee producer in 1852 and kept that status to this day. We have to keep in mind though that in the 18th century, when coffee plantations became widespread, they did also have negative consequences. Just as all of the other plantations administered by colonial powers at the time, they fueled or drived slavery. Many slaves were imported from Africa to work on these plantations. It was apparently not uncommon for the slaves to be beaten, overworked, and in general to live in very poor conditions. Coffee became more and more popular, but it had to compete against another widespread drink, namely tea. Coffee became the preferable drink in many countries, but not everywhere. Tea became the drink of choice in countries like England or the United States. However, in May 1773, British Parliament passed the Tea Act. Americans strongly objected, and on December 16, 1773, the Sons of Liberty, disguised as Native American Indians, emptied 342 chests of tea into the harbor. This incident later became known as the Boston Tea Party. After that, the Americans switched to coffee, and drinking tea became even quite unpatriotic. During the industrial era, coffee cultivation flourished. Thanks to that, coffee shifted from being a generally more of an upper-class drink to a beverage available also for common people. And fortunately for us, it did stay this way in this day and age. Oh, hello. Please watch this video, because otherwise this tiger will eat you.